everyone, it's Laura, and I hope you're all doing well. So for those of y'all who are new to my channel, I'm a registered dietitian, and lately I've been making a lot of these dietitian Q&A videos to kind of help those of y'all out who are going through the process of becoming a dietitian and have questions along the way. And so today I've compiled a list of questions I've received over the past few months, and I'm going to answer them. So let's get started. So kind of to preface this question a little bit, so in order to become a dietitian, you have to do a 4-year undergraduate program at an accredited university. And after that, you have to get accepted into a 1,200-hour internship. And then if you're just starting your schooling, you're gonna have to get your master's. Historically, you didn't have to get your master's, but you're going to have to start doing that. And so with that being said, the worry is, okay, I do this 4-year undergraduate program. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of money. What if I don't get an internship? Is it worth it? And my advice to y'all is to work hard during your undergrad. And so going and getting an internship, they primarily look at GPA and GRE scores. And so if you work really hard in your undergrad and you make your GPA a priority, you should get an internship, as long as you're also open to not necessarily doing your internship at your number one choice. And so a lot of my friends that haven't gotten internships or that they didn't get an internship their first year, it's because they were really, really rigid on where they wanted to do their internship. So maybe they only wanted to do it in a certain city, and so they only applied to 1 or 2 internships. And if they didn't get into those 1 or 2 programs, then they were out of luck. And so you end up having to wait a year and then reapply. And when they could have just gone somewhere random, you know, not the most ideal city maybe, somewhere random and gotten it done, and in that year been done with it. For me, when I was applying to internships, I really wanted to go to Rush in Chicago. And being from Alabama, they had an open house. I flew up there and I went to their open house. I literally talked to every single preceptor. I talked to everyone. I was not shy at all. Then which I was told not to do this, but I did it and it worked out. So I'm not telling you to do this. I'm just telling you my experience and what I did. And I reached out to the internship director afterwards and told her how much I enjoyed the program, how much I was impressed by everyone there, and I was going to put them as my first choice. And I was honest about it, and I ended up getting accepted into their program, and it all worked out. But I also put forth the effort. I studied really hard in undergrad. School was my priority. I had a really good GPA. I studied really hard for the GRE. My GRE score was really good. I flew up to Chicago, which isn't cheap, and went to the open house and was out of my comfort zone. Internally, I'm not extroverted, but I can become extroverted and step up to the plate when I need to. And so that day, I just told myself, you have to be extroverted. You have to talk to everyone and like be yourself, you know, be chill and be cool, but like get out of your comfort zone and talk to them. I know that's a long-winded response, but that's my advice to you, is to work hard and take initiative. What are the pros and cons of the job? I'm actually going to leave a link below. I did a video. I think I called it The Good and the Bad, and I go through 5 pros and 5 cons of being a dietitian. And so I'll leave that in the description. So I've also gotten a few questions about becoming a certified nutrition specialist. And I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about this credential or the schooling or anything like that. I do know that all the jobs that I have worked at, all the jobs that I've applied for, required for you to be a dietitian. Dietitians, I'm not gonna lie, we work really hard to obtain our degree, and it is a very stressful and challenging process. And so when we get done, we can be rather pretentious about our degree. I'm not meaning to sound like a snob or anything like that. I'm just being real with y'all about these degrees that it can be done in a year or 2 years, or everyone gets accepted. You know, there's no elimination process. And one of the benefits of getting into an internship is that not everyone gets accepted. And so it kind of makes our field more competitive. And so as a result, the amount of dietitians out there have gone through strenuous education and challenging processes. If you're someone who you don't want to put in the work and effort to become a dietitian, then I'd question how passionate you are about it and how much you actually want to become a dietitian. Because things in life aren't easy, and when you're challenged and when you struggle and maybe you're humbled by different experiences, especially through your education process, it makes you a better person. So it's just something to keep in mind. Sorry if that sounded really harsh, but I'm just being honest. How can you be a dietitian nutritionist? Those are not the same things at all. So several years ago, I think it was around the time I got done with my internship, our profession made it to where you could be a registered dietitian or an RD, or you could call yourself a registered dietitian nutritionist, an RDN, which it's the exact same thing. They just wanted to add the word nutritionist to our title because it is a more widely known word. A lot of people, like sometimes I walk into a patient's room and I'm like, hey, I'm Laura, I'm one of the dietitians. I just want to see how you're eating. And they're like, who? And I'm like, I'm a dietitian. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, a nutritionist. And they're like, oh. So situations like that where people may not know what a dietitian is, it's way easier to walk in and be like, hey, I'm Laura, I'm one of the dietitian nutritionists. I wanted to see how you've been eating. People resonate more with the word nutritionist. But how it's become is a lot of the older dietitians, they kind of stick with RD at the end of their name just because it's what they've been doing their whole career. But a lot of the newer dietitians have adapted the RDN letters behind their name, but it's literally the exact same thing. That being said, there's definitely a difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist, which I know is very confusing. Literally, anyone can call themselves a nutritionist. All you have to do is have an interest in nutrition. But a dietitian, you have to have the schooling to back it up. And so I know why you thought that, but our profession made that change several years ago. You mentioned in your other videos that you were not good in chemistry when you were in school. Now that you are an RD, how do you teach yourself what you learn in chemistry in order to do your job well? So yes, I was not very good in chemistry. I was very, very bad, actually. One of my chemistry classes, I made a D, and I went to my professor and I literally begged her to give me a C, and she actually gave me a C by I don't know why, but probably because I was so pathetic. And that was with a tutor. So Chem 1, Chem 2, and Organic Chem, I had to tutor the whole way through. Chem 1, I made an A. Chem 2, I made a D, but got a C. And then Organic Chem, I got an A. And chemistry definitely was a really big struggle for me. Luckily, I did learn some of the basics. I didn't really retain them, I'll be honest. But where I got the reinforcement was in my medical nutrition therapy classes and in my internship. That was kind of where it all clicked and made sense, when I was able to apply the chemistry to metabolism and to anatomy and physiology into the body. It was really difficult for me to grasp these chemistry formulas and these ideas, but once I was able to apply it to an area that interests me, so once I was able to apply it to dietetics, it made more sense to me and I was able to retain the knowledge. You mentioned in your other videos you would just have to know basic math in order to become a RD. Can you elaborate on the basic? So by basic, I mean adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, fractions, literally your basic math. And so in undergrad, I actually didn't, well, that's a lie. So I tested out of math for college, so I technically didn't have to take math, but I ended up taking calculus as a elective because I'm a nut. And so you literally, if you understand high school math and you're able to complete high school math, then you know the math that you need in order to become a dietitian. The benefit of math in college is maybe to reinforce the things that you should have learned in high school but didn't. What if you're attending an accredited DPD undergraduate program? Do you still need GRE scores to apply to an internship? Yes, so you still need to take at least when I applied, I still had to take my GRE. It's one of the factors that they use to determine which applicants they want to accept is the GRE score. And so I do recommend giving yourself time to study and time to take it multiple times. I think I know I at least took it twice. I may have taken it 3 times, I'm not really sure. But I studied and I was prepared for it. Could I combine pharmaceuticals and dietetics as a career? I had one friend who didn't get an internship, and our advisor ended up getting her a job at a pharmaceutical company, but that was strictly through connections because she knew somebody. But I also have friends who worked as dietitians and now work for pharmaceutical companies. And a lot of these are like Abbott, Nestle, Walgreens, and so they do a lot of at-home nutrition support. So selling tube feeds, TPN, which is nutrition straight into your veins, and that's what they do, and they really like it, and you make good money doing it. But they really like, obviously, for you to have experience working in nutrition support. And so my friends that have those jobs worked in critical care and did a lot of nutrition support, tube feeds, did a lot of TPN before they got those jobs. I'm struggling to determine which schools I have a good chance of getting accepted into. Is there any way that I can contact schools and ask for their admission stats? So I'm not really sure if they'll give out this information, but I will link below the eatright.org link that has all of the internships listed, and it does have their acceptance, the amount of interns that they accept, so whether it's 4, 8, 12, or however many they accept. It has that listed, and then it also has an email address that you can email and reach out to them. I do recommend, if you are interested in programs, reaching out and saying maybe what their typical GRE score is, what their average GPA is, and ask them if they're willing to provide that information. Yeah, it's a good thing to do. Any tips for getting hired without experience? I'm graduating and applying for jobs, and a lot of them say they prefer applicants with a few years of experience. I'm also willing to take a PRN job. Do you think they're as selective with those? So my recommendation for your first job out the gate is to be open to working anywhere. You need that first year of experience, and after you have that first year, then it's a lot easier to get a job. I know the current hospital I work at, there's literally always a job opening, and we typically always hire an intern out of the internship, assuming that there's an intern that wants to stay in Mobile, Alabama, which last year there was. The year before that, none of them wanted to stay, but we were totally willing to hire them. And then this year, I think we're going to end up hiring one as well. And so it's just something to keep in mind. Just be open. I know my first job, I was pretty rigid about the type of job that I wanted, and I wasn't getting in that field. I wanted to do marketing in New York City, and I was having a really hard time getting my foot in the door. There was one company, and they were willing to hire me not as a dietitian, but as an entry-level marketing person. And at the same time, I also interviewed at an HIV/AIDS clinic as a dietitian, and they were going to hire me as a dietitian. And so I made the decision to not pursue marketing, but to focus on getting that year of experience as a registered dietitian. And so I would just stay open, apply to every and all jobs. In regards to the PRN jobs, they tend to be short-term jobs. They're oftentimes like maternity leave, or maybe they just need someone temporarily until they hire someone else. And those can be a good way to get your foot in the door. So any way you can get a job and start making money is Great. What would the difference be in majoring in biochemistry versus dietetics? Would I still be able to work on the research side of nutrition with a dietetics degree? So yes, so at my job in Chicago, every single dietitian was on a research project. And so I actually conducted research. It got published, got accepted as an abstract at our FNCE, our national conference. And so it is something that, depending on where you work, honestly, my current job, if I wanted to do research, my boss would be totally fine with it. And so if that's something you're interested in, it's totally obtainable. You would need at least your master's. One of my good friends from my internship, she actually, after she got done with her internship, she went and pursued her PhD because she strictly wanted to do research. I have another friend who is also a dietitian. She pursued her PhD. She had been a dietitian for a while. She pursued her PhD, and now she's just doing research. So it depends on how much research you want to conduct. If you want to practice as a dietitian and also do research, all you need your master's. But if you want to do research 24/7 and that's all you want to do, then you will need to get your PhD. What master's degree did you choose? Can you elaborate on the master's program that you went through? So I chose clinical nutrition just because it was a pretty broad master's degree. I mean, I felt like there was a program out in Long Beach that I was interested in, but it was community. I wasn't sold on community. I was sold on being in California. And so I opted to go the clinical route because I didn't necessarily want to do community my whole career. And I felt like if I got my master's in clinical nutrition, then I could transition into community if I wanted to. But I feel like it would have been a little bit harder to get my internship in community and transition into the hospital. That was just my reasoning in it. And actually my first job was in community. So, and my master's was in clinical nutrition. I feel like the clinical nutrition programs, you get a broader spectrum because you also do some hours in community and like in the school systems and things like that. And I think it's the most common programs are clinical nutrition. Did you learn more during the internship or during the nutrition and dietetics classes? So definitely the internship. So I learned a lot my last year, primarily my last year in undergrad, which moved forward into my internship. But internship is like a brain dump. You learn so much information and you're provided with so much resources and tools and things like that. My undergrad did provide a good basis. So I felt like going into my internship, I was prepared for my internship, but I definitely needed my internship to then practice as a dietitian. Do you know if you're forced to give out the recommendations of the government if you're a registered dietitian? I know you are a plant-based dietitian, which would be something I'd like to be. So in my internship, I don't know if my process was just worked out for me or what, but in my internship, there were 2 other interns that were plant-based, and the professors and preceptors are pretty open-minded when it comes to recommendations. And as long as you have the research to back it up, that's what matters most. And honestly, in the hospital setting, you don't provide extensive education to these patients. These patients are super sick. All they want to do is go home. There's a million people coming in and out of their rooms. They don't remember half of what you say. And so my goal going into a patient's room when I'm educating them is for them to remember 1, maybe 2 things that I say. And so it's not like I'm sitting there and talking to them for an hour and educating them on what they should eat before they go home. Because A, they don't have the time for that, and they're not mentally there. You know, they just had a heart attack and they're worrying about a lot of things. And so a lot of the things that I discuss with patients is limiting refined sugar, making sure to get your fruits and vegetables, making sure to drink your water. So a lot of our patients, they drink a lot of high sugar beverages. And so, like I said, a lot of my education is around limiting refined and processed foods. And as a result, the processed meats and products fall into that category. And so I do focus more on consuming fresh foods. And so I've never had a problem with it, to be honest. And I also base it on the patient as well. So a lot of patients aren't at the point to where they are interested in becoming plant-based, and forcing that on them and talking about that is a moot point. But meeting them where they're at, and while at the same time challenging them a little bit, is what matters to me. And so one of my jobs, part of my job was a weight loss clinic, and it was specifically for patients who needed to lose weight before they could receive an organ transplant. And so for them, a lot of it was, like I said, limiting processed foods, drinking your water, decreasing refined sugar, and actually moving a little bit, not being so sedentary. And some of my patients were already vegetarians, some of them were already plant-based, but the majority of them were not, because they were either had a fatty liver or they were on dialysis and needed a new kidney. And so I've never had issues, and I've always been fine making my recommendations, but at the same time, I never push my beliefs or my views on other people. I meet them where they're at. If they're consuming a bunch of processed meats, I talk to them about eating fresher meats. And sometimes I may even say, have you ever heard of Meatless Mondays? Have you ever considered maybe some meals not consuming any meat at all? It's something that has helped out some of my clients in the past. It's just something to think about, and brainstorming with them idea. And sometimes I'll be like, no, I need my meat. And I'm like, okay, just throwing it out there. I'm super cool about it all. But at the same time, I do think it's important to limit processed foods, refined sugar, and trying to eat as fresh as possible. And drink your water. Don't drink a bunch of sugar beverages. So I hope this video helped y'all out. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to leave them below, and I'll make another one of these videos. I hope y'all are doing well, and I'll see you soon. Bye.